very much. I'm going to ask you to find the Gospel of John with us once more this morning, if you will. We're going to skip back a little bit today because it's Graduate Recognition Day, a special part of the story. And we're going to find that in John chapter 6, if you would turn there. The 6th chapter of John. And we're going to be at verse 15 down through verse 21. Here John gives us just the summary of this story. We're going to get the backstory to the story and some of the other details in Matthew chapter 14. So you may want to go ahead and find that. Matthew 14, John chapter 6. All right? Both of them give us a part of the story. We're going to put those two together so we can get the whole story this morning. All right? Notice here in John chapter 6, starting at verse 15, therefore when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force, to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. This is right after the feeding of the 5,000. They're so impressed with that great miracle. Jesus thinking they're about to, ahead of time, before it's the proper time, make him king, or try to make him king, so he slips away by himself. Verse 16 says, now when the evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. Then the sea arose because of a great wind that was blowing. So when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near to the boat. And they were afraid. But Jesus said to them, it is I. Do not be afraid. And they willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. That's a summary to the story. I want us to get all the details to it in Matthew chapter 14, if you'll flip back there, and starting at verse 22. Here's the other details. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. When he had sent the multitude away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it's a ghost. And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it's really you, command me to come to you on the water. And so Jesus said, come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. And when they crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent out into all the region, brought to him all who were sick, and begged him that they might not only touch him, the hem of his garment, and as many as touched it were made perfectly well. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is this story about Peter walking on the water. I know somebody's thinking, remember, preacher, Peter sank. Yeah, I know, he sank. Just like a rock, right? We all know that. But he also makes an unforgettable splash and accomplishes something that those who stayed in the boat didn't get to do. Amen. In Matthew verse 29 it says, and Peter left the boat, climbed over the boat, got into the water. This is what it says. He left the boat and walked on the water to Jesus. 11 stayed in the boat. Only one of these guys dares to get out of the boat. I know, Peter sank. He's sinking like a rock. He's about to go to the bottom. But you got to get this first. He walked on the water. He actually took several steps toward Jesus, walking on the water just like Jesus. And that's the reason Peter is the subject of our message this morning, and not those 11 other guys who would not get out of the boat. I'm going to talk to our graduates this morning, especially to Trevor. Trevor, I'm sorry I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to call your name anymore, all right? But I only want to just talk to the graduates. I want us all to think about that this is the first day of the rest of our life. So it doesn't matter if you're still in elementary school, if you're in junior high, middle school, if you're just starting high school, if you're about to graduate from high school, if you're still in college, or it doesn't matter if this morning you think you have only about 10 years left, maybe about 20 years left, or maybe about 30 years left. No matter where you're on the spectrum, I want us to realize this is the first day of the rest of our life, and God still has something He wants to accomplish through our life for His glory. And it could be something greater than we ever dreamed, or greater than we could ever imagine. So I want us to challenge this morning to get ready for this day and the rest of our life to do something great for Jesus, no matter how much time we have left in this world. Like Peter, I want to challenge all of us, no matter where we are in life, to get out of the boat. I want to challenge us to dare to be different. I want to challenge us to strive to be our best for the Lord Jesus. I want to challenge us to do something great for God. Now, how can we do that? How can we accomplish that? To meet this big challenge, we got to first meet a few and take care of a few smaller challenges. So I want us to talk through some of these smaller challenges this morning that will help us get out of the boat and do something great for our God with the rest of our life. The first challenge I want to talk about is to get the desire. Get the desire. Peter's leap of faith here, notice in the story, is not a requirement given him by Jesus. Rather, it is Peter's request to Jesus. Jesus didn't tell him something he's got to do. This is something Peter is requesting the opportunity to do for Jesus. It's not the Lord's demand that Jesus is putting on him. Rather, it is Peter's desire that he expresses to the Lord. The 11 others stayed in the boat because they had no desire, they have no courage to volunteer for a stroll on the Sea of Galilee with the waves tossing the little boat up and down in the middle of the night without a life preserver. They have no desire, no want to whatsoever to get out of the boat. But Peter gets the desire, and he requests from Jesus permission to get out of the boat and come to him walking on the water. And he gets that permission immediately from Jesus. I want you to hear me. God is never going to give us permission to do the wrong thing. He's never going to give us permission to do a bad thing. He's never going to give us permission to do a sinful thing. It is never God's will for us to sin or to mess up. But when it comes down to good deeds, when it comes to some godly goals for our life, when it comes to some determined desires of something we want to do to make our world a better place for the glory of God, I believe God is far more willing to give His permission and to bless our efforts than we care to admit. He's ready to give permission if we have a desire like that to do something great for His glory. Notice here, God's will does not limit Peter's desire to step out of that boat in faith and walk on the water. Jesus immediately says, yes, come. He immediately gives him permission. God's will does not limit Peter's desire. I don't believe God's will will limit our desire either to do something great for Him. It's far more likely that our want to, our lack of want to, will limit God's will for our life rather than God's will placing some limitations on our want to or our desire to do something great for Him. I'm totally convinced of this. If we get the desire, if we have the want to, if we express it to Jesus, if we tell Him we're ready to attempt something great for His honor and for His glory and for the good of our world, Jesus is ready to give us His permission and His help. Amen. His will is not going to limit us. Most likely it's our lack of want to that may limit His will being accomplished through our life. Do you hear what the preacher's saying? We got to get the desire to do something great for our Lord. The second challenge I want us to notice from the story is that we have to ignore the critics. You got to ignore the critics. Now, Peter climbs over the side of that boat when he gets permission from Jesus, and he steps out on that water to go walking to Jesus on the water. Can you imagine what he's hearing when he does that from the other 11 guys sitting in the boat? Jesus, if that's really you, bid me to come walking to you on the water. Okay, Peter, come on. Can you imagine what the other guys were saying right at that moment? You might hear one hollering out, Peter, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Another may yell, hey, dummy, you're going to sink like a rock, and we're going to laugh at you when you do. Then all of them may join in. When you go under, don't expect any help for us. We're not coming out there. You're not going to get any help from us. A young man sat down for an interview with the editor of a daily newspaper. He shares with the editor some of his cartoon work, and he's hoping to get a job. Pulling no punches, holding nothing back, the editor looks at the young man and says to him point blank, sorry, kid, you just don't have any talent. We can't use you. The young man tried a few other newspapers. And each time he got the same result. Sorry, not enough talent. We can't use you. So the young man's undaunted by his critics. He rents out an old rat-infested garage to turn into his studio, and he begins to do freelance work for churches and some other smaller businesses to help jumpstart his career. Now today, the name of that no-talent artist was known all around the world. And one of those mice he saw playing in his mice-infested studio got transformed into a cartoon character that's more famous than most presidents and prime ministers. Have you ever heard the name Mickey Mouse? M-I-C-K-E-Y. My little granddaughter drives me nuts watching Mickey Mouse all the time. Have you ever heard of Disney World? You heard of Disneyland? Walt Disney succeeded and became famous because he didn't let his critics keep him in the boat. He got out of the boat. He took the plunge. He went for it anyway. And I want to remind us this morning, those who love the safety and comfort of the boat don't want you to bail out. When we bail out of the boat, when we attempt something great for the Lord, it puts so much pressure on them that rather that we stay in the boat and play it safe with them. So to get out of the boat, to do something great for God, we've got to ignore the critics. There will always be critics. We got to leave the crowd behind, ignore the critics, hear from God, and just be brave enough and strong enough in our faith to do what God is calling us to do. We got to dare go for the goal on our own. Because I want to tell you, graduates and everybody else in here, most of the time, there'll be more people ready to stay in the boat than there are people willing to get out of the boat and attempt something great for the honor and glory of our God. So we got to ignore the critics. A third challenge I want us to give from this story this morning is we got to get in over our head. Get in over your head. When I was about, 6, 7, or 8, something like that, I made a mistake of going swimming with my Uncle John. Uncle John, my mama's brother. Uncle John, crazy as he can be. Uncle John, you never know what he's going to say or what he's going to do next. I don't know why I did it, but I went down to the swimming hole with Uncle John. I still couldn't swim at that time. I had no plans to learn how to swim on that particular day. I was going to stay in the boat. I was going to stay up on shore. I was going to stay in the shallows. I wasn't going to get out in the deep. And I was playing around there in the shallows. And I wasn't noticing what Uncle John was doing. And before I knew what was happening, he slipped up behind me. He put a big old bear hug on me. He picked me up. He carried me out into the deep water where it's way over my head, where the snakes are most likely to be found. And he throws me right out in the middle of that deep water. And when I'm screaming and yelling for help, Uncle John is swimming out and hollering back at me, "Swim or drown, Gene, swim or drown." He just left me. Just left me. I don't know if you can call what I did that day swimming, but I got out. My arms are flailing, my legs are kicking. I don't know how I did it, but I got out. I didn't think it was funny that day, and I still don't think it's funny. I still have a bad feeling in my heart about Uncle John. This story, Peter's over his head the second his feet hits the water. He knows he's going to be over his head. The waves are tossing, the wind's blowing, it's storming. But he steps over the edge of the boat and steps into the water anyway. Now, those 11 guys that are still in the boat never took a step on the water. But Peter does. Jesus gave him permission. He believed he could do it. He bails out. He trusts Jesus to help him do it. He believes that if he fails, Jesus is going to catch him, and so he just jumps into the water anyway. He jumps right in over his head. And I want us to be reminded this morning to do God's will. You have to get out of the boat and you have to jump in over your head. You understand God's will not leave us in our comfort zone. Amen. God's will not leave us in the safety of the boat. God's will is going to lead us to a place where we will be over our head, where the task will be bigger than we are, where the resources we have to have are going to be much larger than the resources we have available, where we have to trust God, and if God doesn't come through, we don't have a chance. That's why we miss God's will so much, because we don't want to get out of the boat. We don't want to leave the safety of the sanctuary. We don't want to face any risk of speaking up for Jesus and standing up for Jesus. We don't want to get on the airplane and fly to a foreign country. That's why we miss the will of God, because we want to play it safe. I want to tell you, most likely we're not going to find the will of God that we get in over our heads. We have to have God's help in order to come through, in order to be successful. Babe Ruth, the Hall of Fame baseball player, remember the guy who hit 714 home runs? Answered this challenge this way. Hear what Babe Ruth said. Babe Ruth put it this way: never let the fear of striking out keep you from taking a good swing. We can't let the fear of failure, we can't let the fear of going under, we can't let the fear of ridicule, we can't let the fear of anything keep us from taking a good swing, from getting out of the boat, from jumping in over our head, from attempting something great for our God. I want you to get this. This might be the most important thing I want to say this morning. God can help us accomplish only what God can do through us only when we dare attempt only what God can do through us. He's ready. He will. Our God comes through. He enables. He equips. He empowers us to do His will. But listen, it'll never happen till we're willing to take the risk, take the plunge, jump in over our head, and attempt God's great big will, that great big plan that God has laid upon our heart. We can only accomplish that which only God can do through us when we are ready and willing to attempt only what God himself can accomplish and do through us. If we never attempt it, if we never take the plunge, if we never try, it'll never happen. Somebody say amen. Amen. Got to be willing to get out of the boat, jump in over your head. That's when it'll happen. The fourth challenge is for us to get help when we need it. Get help when we need it. After a few steps on the water, it looks like everything's going well. Peter's taking step after step after step. He's walking on the water. He's going to Jesus. He's actually doing it. But then Matthew points out he hears the wind, and it's so boisterous, it's so strong, the wind's whipping around him. Matthew points out how he loses his focus and glances at the waves. And when he starts listening to the wind and he glances at the waves, takes his eyes off Jesus, loses his focus, what happens to him? His faith gets weak. He lets fear overwhelm him. And he starts to sink. He's going under. On his way down, he has sense enough to yell for help. Lord, save me! And Jesus picks him up in his arms. Peter doesn't let his pride get choked on his pride and sink to the bottom. He swallows his pride and he asks for help. And I want to remind all of us this morning, there's never any shame when we ask for help. We all need help. If we dare get out of the boat, we try to be different, we attempt something great for God, we will always need encouragement from somebody, we will always need help from somebody, we will always need support from somebody else. So we need to ask our friends, ask our family to pray for us, receive their encouragement. We need to seek the counsel of our parents or our youth leader or the pastor, someone else in the church family. And most of all, need to be always ready and willing to call on Jesus. Lord, save me! This isn't turning out quite like I expected. I need some help. He'll help you. He'll help you. Never be reluctant to ask for help. Nobody succeeds in life without help from somebody else. Never happens. So never be ashamed to say, I need some help. I need you to pray with me. I need you to help me figure this out. God always provides somebody to give you the help you need when that time comes. Here's the last challenge. The last challenge is to let Jesus carry you. Let Jesus carry you. Matthew 14, verse 32 says, after Peter and Jesus were in the boat, the wind became calm. Peter says, Lord, save me, help me. Jesus takes him in his arms, picks him up, and carries him back to the boat. And when they step into the boat, the storm completely calms down. In John's account, it's even more miraculous. John's account, it says, and immediately, when they stepped into the boat, immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. So Jesus picks Peter up, brings him back to the boat, steps in the boat. The wind, the storm calms down. Everything gets as calm and peaceful as can be. They look up, and they're at the shore. Just like that, instantly, they've arrived at where they're going. Isn't that amazing? Jesus carries Peter back in the boat, and immediately he reaches his destination. He gets where he's supposed to be going. And reminds us, Jesus will always carry us much farther than we can go on our own. If we want to stand taller, if we want to reach higher, if we want to go farther, if we want to try something greater, if we want to accomplish more in our life, we got to let Jesus carry us. We got to depend on him. We got to let Jesus be the wind beneath our wings. We Got to receive our strength from Him. Let Him support us. Now, a lot of folks will say that Peter's a failure because Peter got out of the boat and took only a few steps, and then he goes under, has to have Jesus come bring him back to the boat, bring him to the shore where they're going. Now, who's the real failures in this story? Maybe it's the 11 who stayed in the boat. They didn't get the thrill of walking on the water, even a few steps. They didn't grow in their faith. I guarantee you, Peter's faith was stronger when he got back to the boat. They didn't have the thrill of Jesus rescuing them, picking them up, bringing them to the boat, calming the sea for them. I tell you, the failures in this story is not Peter. The failure in the story is 11 who wouldn't get out of their comfort zone, wouldn't try to take that step of faith, wouldn't attempt anything great for God. They're the failures in the story. It comes down to this question for us: who do we identify with most in this story? Do we identify most with the 11 guys playing it safe in the boat? Or with Peter, who's willing to take the risk, get out of the boat, get in over his head, attempt something great for God? Trusting that if it didn't go as he expected, Jesus would rescue him. Jesus would bail him out. That's why we can take risks for God, because Jesus is always there to catch us when we fall in. When we start to sin, He'll always catch us. We can trust Him. He's never going to punish us for attempting something great for His honor and for His glory. He doesn't work that way. We can do it. So are we sitting in the boat today, or attempting to walk on the water for the glory of Jesus? Where are we? Are we more committed to Jesus, or more committed to the crowd? Is it our desire to please our Lord, or to be popular with people? Where are we in this story? If you're sitting here this morning and you've never decided to follow Jesus, your first step to get out of the boat is to make your decision for Jesus. So step out, step forward, and say, I'm ready to receive Jesus as my Lord and Savior. We're ready to help you with that decision this morning. If you are a Christian and you have no doubt about it, you know you're a follower of Jesus, no doubt in your heart about that whatsoever, but you also realize you're playing it safe in the boat more than you're stepping out on the water to attempt something great for God. Maybe your first step ought to be to step out, step forward, lay down your fears, whatever it is holding you back. Get that right with the Lord and say, Lord, whatever you call me to do, whatever you left on my heart, whatever your will is for my life, no matter how far it stretches me out of my comfort zone, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of the boat. I'm ready to jump in over my head. I'm ready to take the risk. I'm ready to attempt something great for your honor and for your glory. Let's do business for Jesus this morning. All right, let's stand together. Every head bowed. Every eye closed. I'm going to pray. And I say the amen. Brother David, we're going to start leading us in our song of decision, and I want you to be the first one to step out, step forward, meet the Lord here, and do business with Him this morning. Okay? Thank you, Lord, for speaking to us in this story. Thank you for the example of Peter, Lord, to have the courage to take that step of faith. May we be challenged today to do like Peter, to express our desire, get the desire to do something great for you, get your permission to go for it, and Lord, help us to jump in. Step out. Whatever it is holding us back today, help us to lay it down, Lord. Help us to hear your call and answer your call this morning.